So is it the personal kind of interaction that kind of initially drew you to that job? Was there anything that you weren't kind of getting in your previous job that led you to that? Or
So, well, I worked in a college. I worked in a college for more than 8 years, I think it was. So when I left university, when I had finished, I went to work at Liverpool Community College, which is now City of Liverpool College. And I worked in the ESOL department, which was English for speakers of other languages. So we had a lot of particularly young unaccompanied asylum seekers. At the time when I was there, it was sort of when there was a lot of conflict in the Middle East. So we had a lot of Iraqi and Afghani young people sort of in our care. And then towards the end, as I was leaving, that was when we were starting to see that influx of Syrian refugees coming through. And that was an amazing job. I absolutely loved it. And then when I was offered redundancy when I was on maternity leave, and the idea of having a young family and travelling in and out to the city centre, when I was doing it, when pre-children, it was great, but it's not practical then once you've had a family. So I took the voluntary redundancy, and then I made the decision to stay at home with my daughter Grace. So I was at home with Grace for about 2.5 years, but in the meantime I'd been volunteering so it was the Healthy Living Service with St Helens Council. I think it's now the Wellbeing Service, and I had been volunteering with them in their breastfeeding support groups, and then I ended up being offered a paid position as an infant feeding support worker. So we worked in community, but clinically in the hospital as well. So it was sort of a nice mix of half and half. But I ended up, the service operated 7 days a week, and I absolutely loved that job. I loved it so much, and I was good at it. I got really good feedback from all the mums that I supported. I just adored it. I absolutely adored it. But it was difficult because we don't have any family here. We have to sort of provide all of our own childcare. So we were spending more in childcare than we were bringing in. And it was crippling us at the end of the day. So then a friend of mine who worked at the time at Oak Furniture Land, they wanted someone to do payroll. And he sort of knew that we weren't in a great situation. He said, the job's there if you want it. So I was heartbroken to leave, but it was the right decision for my family. So I said, right, okay, I'm going to do it. So I left the Healthy Living team, and then I went to Oak Furniture Land. And it was all right. It was what it was. There was a lot of what they would call rumbants, in the staff room, and sometimes I'd hear things and I'd think, and I'd just walk away because I think, am I going to challenge that desperately misogynistic statement, or am I just going to walk away? I'll just walk away, because you've got to pick your battles sometimes. My husband was working there at the time on the night shifts, and then I was doing day shifts in the office. So in terms of our family, it suited us down to the ground. So I think we sort of both knew that it wasn't going to be us forever, but for right then and there where we were, it was spot on. And then coronavirus happened, then COVID-19 hit, so we were furloughed, and then ultimately they shut the site in St Helens, so we were all made redundant. They had the full redundancy consultation process, but consultation for what? Because the site was going, that was that. But we had been there for less than a year, so we ended up leaving with absolutely nothing, which was a bit devastating. And then I sort of bounced around a bit. It becomes very hard to find a job that fits around school hours, because that's the restriction. And then, in school holidays, you've got to try and manage your childcare, and I didn't want to be paying out a fortune in school holidays, so I needed something with a bit of flexibility, and it's harder than it sounds on paper, So then I did a few different jobs that and then I think I reached a point where I just thought, if I go in somewhere and I know that it's not for me, I'm not even going to waste any time, because sort of within a couple of weeks, I think whether you're going to fit or not. So I sort of thought, I'm not going to give these things 6 months or a year of my time if I just know in my gut that it's not right. So then I set up my own business. So in the morning I walk dogs. I have my own dog walking service. So I've been doing that since last November, so for about a year now. So I do a bit of dog walking in the morning. I have a couple of old people that I started helping. In sort of COVID-19, I was doing some community volunteering, and I've kept up with two in particular. So I just stop in on them a couple of times a week. And there's one lady who's got Alzheimer's, so I go and sit with her for a little bit, a couple of times a week, so her daughter can go and just have a little bit of respite and take the dog for a walk and just have a little bit of a chill. And then so I needed something that was ideally in the afternoons. And then this job came up for the funeral arranger, so I thought, oh, well, I'll apply for it because it looks quite interesting. And at the same time, I had applied for a job in the transport department in the council. So it was like organising like private taxis and private ambulances for people with disabilities or complex needs, like going to, I think, like kids going to school and people going for medical appointments. So I interviewed for both jobs, and then I was offered both jobs, but they were the exact same hours and the exact same money. So I thought this comes down to what I think is going to be better for me in the long run. So my gut said funeral home. So I went funeral home, and then I went in and I thought, oh, I really don't know if I made the right choice. And then once I got into it, then I thought I definitely have. But it's the same. So all of the things that I loved about my job in infant feeding, so that like building a relationship with someone at a time when they're really, really vulnerable, and then helping them and giving them the skills that they need to then not need you. So when you say goodbye, you're done then, you part ways, you don't hear from that person again, but they were at a difficult point in their journey and you made it a little bit better for them. And that's the same when you're helping a new mum to breastfeed, or when you're helping someone to bury their elderly mother. Turns out it's the same. So cradle to grave, like. But I like helping people, and that's why I end up doing things like, getting involved in the volunteering service and stuff. I just like helping people, and I think that there's a lot of vulnerable people in our community, and I think that it's very hard sometimes to ask for help, and sometimes people can slip through the nets, and I always have time to give. We are very much sort of, I feel, embedded within our community, and I feel like I have a lot of people that if I needed something, I can go and ask. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of people that know that if they needed something, they can come and ask me, because it's reciprocal, it's give and take. And it makes me feel, when I walk through the park or when we're walking to school, it makes me feel like we're a small part of something that's bigger than us.